Unbelievably, 2025 is quickly approaching its end 9 months from now. Um, 9 something months from now. Anyway, yes, time is flying. A week into March already. Unbelievable. And what we're looking at is a market. Ooh, oh man. Is a market with assets that like to take souls. They like to crush people's souls. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have an asset being traded in a market. The entire market is, let's say, 50 million people spread across hundreds of thousands, really millions of assets. So if you think about it, if you do the average, if the average person was trading one asset, that means that the average asset has around one trader in it at any given time with no second side on the trade. But the reality is people don't just trade one asset, right? And especially exchanges which provide multiple assets to trade and that also trade the assets that they provide. And HFT firms which trade huge baskets of assets. But if you do the math, you can see very quickly that there are indeed a lot of assets that a tiny handful of people are actually trading. And why might that be, you would ask? Well, I'll tell you why that might be. It might be because when assets have very low liquidity, it's because of a number of reasons, right? Typically, they don't either have the capital to make noise, or it's not part of their game plan, right? And they're looking for a different kind of growth, like organic growth, and they just haven't hit their stride yet, and they're working on it. Or in some cases, it's a kind of a shell game where assets exist for completely different reasons than what traders think it exists for, right? Oftentimes, traders don't actually think about what is this asset, what does it do? They just see a thing that is going up and they want to buy because they think it's going to keep going up. All right, where smart traders will see a thing that just went down and it looks like it's going to start to go up. And then they think, okay, I'll buy here because, buy low, sell high. Okay? But in reality, what we have are assets that very often are there to wash things, right? Like people do assets on the market simply to wash trades. While that may sound ridiculous to you, and it may even be, it is the case that there are a lot of assets. Now, I'm not saying it's the majority of assets, but there are a lot of assets, more than a handful, far more than a handful, that exist for the purpose of washing information, washing trades, washing transactions, washing the movement of funds. And you can say, well, isn't that just fraud? Well, not necessarily. It may be for various reasons. It may be for perfectly legitimate privacy reasons. Now, you might think to yourself, well, who's going to create a market asset for that? That seems insane. Right. It may seem insane to you, and arguably it may well be. But there are people who would do this. A lot more than you think, right? In fact, some people are very well known, and I'm not going to start naming names, but there are definitely some extremely well-known assets, mostly because of media buzz, etc., currently in the news on a regular basis, where that does happen, in theory, allegedly. And it's been happening for some time, for even some years. But again, I'm going to avoid naming names for the purposes of legal liability issues. But yeah, because if I can't prove it, quote unquote, in this video, or in general, then I'm not gonna do that, right? But let's just say I guarantee you have heard if you're in the markets at all, especially in crypto, or even traditionals, really, but especially in crypto, you've definitely heard of these names in recent months or years. In fact, even if you're not in the market, right? If you just pay attention to the news at all, like the main headline, even just the main headlines, or even just the main headline on any given day in the last, 10 years or so, you've definitely heard of this, of the assets I'm talking about. At least one of them. Guaranteed. Even two. Oh, no way. Okay. No. Second thing is, right? What is it that's taking souls and crushing souls on the market, right? Why? What is it? Why did I write that? Well, what's taking souls on the market is the degen behavior, right? It's over leveraged positions, swing trading them, right, and getting wrecked on bad decisions. See, here's the thing. When a trade goes against you, and this is probably the hardest thing for most traders to do, because this will happen to you often, especially if you're a new trader or not a very experienced trader. When a trade goes against you, you really need to get out immediately. Right? And when I say immediately, I mean immediately. Right? Here's the other thing. You've got to stop chasing those trades. That is probably the number one creator of bad trades, is you're chasing them. Right? When you're chasing bad trades, you might be chasing a trade that's a good trade at the beginning, but when you chase it, it very quickly becomes a bad trade. Okay. Right? When you get into a trade that you've been chasing, it very quickly flips from a good trade to a bad one. Right? Just by missing it for a few seconds. Right? It can quickly jump from an entry point that's good to an entry point that's not good. And you'll notice that happens a lot. It most definitely will happen if you use market entries. You don't want to use market entries for precisely that reason, among others. Right? Limit orders, much better, because at least you'll have your price fixed in place, right, to where you want to get in and where you want to get out. Market entry, way worse, because you'll get in wherever the market happens to be. And if you click the buy button later than you ought to, or the sell button later than you ought to, on a market order, you're going to get whatever the market happens to be at, right, which may or may not be in your favor. And most likely will not be, especially if you're in chase mode, which you should never be. Because when you chase, you end up losing good position. It's just that simple. Hello, kitty. Hello, kitty. Right? There's an inherent risk and danger in chasing when it comes to positions and entries, and even exits, by the way, but especially entries. Like, notice that if you start chasing, immediately you should stop. But if you don't stop for some reason, you'll notice that where you do get in will typically be at a place that is a local high or a local low that you are not likely to return to for a while. What I mean by that is, the price action will probably immediately turn on you as soon as you get your position entered. And then you will spend the entirety of your trade just praying for it to get back to there. When it does finally get back there, you probably won't even close, because you'll think, well, it's finally making a move in that direction. Now it's going to go further in that direction, and then it doesn't. And then you wait another eternity waiting for it to get back there, and then it gets close, but maybe it doesn't even get there, or maybe it gets there a little past, and you feel that greedy bump again, and you don't close your trade again, and it quickly turns on you, and you're in the red again. Each time these lessons are telling you, hey man, you should have closed your trade, but you didn't, right? So there's your lesson for the day. Hopefully it's useful. Take care. Happy trading. Cheers.